we let Don... excusez-moi, je vais maintenant laisser la parole à Don Hutcheson, qui va nous parler du G7, G7+. I'll let Don Hutcheson speaking about the G7.
I understood a little bit of what he said.
Yeah.
Oh, I need that?
Yeah, it should be.
Bonjour. I want to set my timer.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So I know if I'm going too long. Oh, this is a, can we have the lights down a little bit? So this picture, by the way, it happens to be my wife in there, but that's got nothing to do with this picture. This picture, I do thousands and thousands of presentations with projectors. And I used to be very precise. I would measure the screen with a spectrophotometer, and I would build an ICC profile and try to get perfect color. We don't need perfect color, but I want to make sure that we don't lose detail in the highlights, that the colors go smoothly. This is all you need to make sure that you've got a good presentation on the screen. If you want this picture, by the way, you can get it. You can get it from my website. Just contact me afterwards, and I'll happily send it to you. So my title is G7 Plus for consistent printing, and consistent. This is a picture of me taken in 1968 when I was a much younger person. Let me see if I can strike that same pose. Do you see any similarity? A long time ago. But it indicates that I had a deep interest in photography. All of my life I have been a photographer, and I consider printing just to be a way of practicing my hobby, and I consider printing to be an extension of photography. Let me know if I'm talking too fast, translators. Okay, oh, I got a thumbs up. I can go faster? No, it's good. So the content is, what is G7 Plus? What are the advantages versus TVI calibration? Although I have to admit that TVI calibration can do a very good job as well. Andy and I have to drink beer tonight, so I've got to be nice to him, and he was very nice to me. What are the benefits for printers, print buyers, and creatives of the G7 process? And again, as Andy did, I want to talk about the most exciting thing that's happened probably in my whole career, the integration of G7 into the ISO 12647-2 standard, which has taken a long time and is very exciting. So, as a very young boy, I was very interested in art, and I was good at art, but I don't have an artistic temperament, really. But I'm lazy, and I found it took too long to paint a picture, so I decided I would take up photography. So I've been a photographer since I was 13, and you can work out how old I am now by looking at that year. And then in 1968, I was lucky to be the very first drum scanner operator in New Zealand, which is where I get my funny accent from. And I'm not a color scientist, and I'm not a mathematician, I'm not a programmer. I am a troublemaker, and I am an inventor. I love to understand both the creative and the production requirements, desires, limitations in printing, and then help to bridge the gap between the designer, the brand, the publisher, the agency, and the printer. And in the years that I've been in this industry, which is since 1968, I've invented many little things. Some of them were quite successful to improve print quality and efficiency. And usually I invented them because I found that the accepted way of doing it was no longer the best way. Very often we find ourselves pursuing a standard or a method that has been replaced by something more logical. So what is G7? Well, it's not this. This is something else. What else is G7? Oh, it's not that either. I was surprised and delighted to find that the taxi company has stolen my invention. But it's green, it's not gray. No, G7 is an update that was released in 2023 to the process known as G7, which came out in 2005 and is now in use by over 40,000 people worldwide. Printers, brands, agencies, it's specified, retouches, it's taken off quite well. It is, in fact, a printer calibration system that can be applied to any printing technology that achieves the same gray balance and the same tonality, that's darkness, lightness, and contrast, on any printing system, regardless of the technology. It can be gravure, offset, screen, inkjet, it doesn't matter. Regardless of the substrate, regardless of the inks, and regardless of the screening. The key thing about G7 is it's designed to produce a standard visual appearance of two key image qualities that every human being judges any image or any reproduction by automatically and subconsciously. One is tonality. Is it too light, too dark, or just right? And the other is gray balance. Is it neutral? Is it bluish? Is it brownish? It's the same method and the same goals for all printing systems, not just offset. All inks, all substrates, all screening. And the principle is exactly the same principle as TVIs. We use calibration curves. Usually it's in the plate making. Today it might also be in a RIP, or it could even be in Photoshop. Uses CMYK curves alone, without ICC profiles, to achieve gray balance and tonality. And in this way, it is, in my not very humble opinion, more effective and more efficient than traditional TVI. And you might ask why? How can that be? You're both using curves. TVI uses curves, G7 uses curves. To answer that, I have to show the two methods of calibration. For traditional TVI, we print 4 scales of cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. We measure them, put them through a little computer program. We get RIP curves, and as a result, we get our standard TVI curves. And that's been the process for the last 40 years at least, I think. The problem is, and I learned this when I started to work with multiple different proofing systems and printing systems about 40 years ago, I discovered the same curves did not give me the same gray balance that I was expecting as a photographer. So curves alone don't guarantee gray balance. And if you want to have curves defined for different printing systems like inkjet or even different inks or screening, you must have different curves. And to illustrate this, I have 3 printing systems here in their native condition, their raw condition. Digital, I think it was Konica Minolta, inkjet and Epson, and offset was probably a Komori, I'm not sure. These are as they were uncalibrated. Applying the ISO standard TVI curves from 2013, but similar to now, I got this result, not bad on digital. This one didn't look very good off the Epson. And this is the one from the offset. None of these 3 match completely. The outside 2 are fairly close, but you see the one on the left is not the same color of gray. So how does G7 and G7 Plus calibration work? Very similar. We printed, this happens to be a target that is used extensively. It's called the P2P. And in it, we have 2 scales. One is black ink only, and the next one down there is CMY only, printed with precisely controlled standard percentages. It is measured. Again, it goes through a piece of software. We produce some curves. And this time, we don't get standard TVI. We get standard quality of tonality and a standard appearance of gray balance, no matter what that printing system is. So if I calibrate an offset press, an inkjet device, a gravure press, with this method, the grays will have the same tonality and the same gray balance. What is the benefit of that? It's the same methodology for all systems. More valuable use of the curves. The curves are sitting there just dying to do this really powerful job. And we're allowing them now to do some of the work that would have been done by ICC profiles, but we're getting shared neutral appearance without the use of ICC. And again, we look at these same systems. This time, if we do the G7 calibration, they are virtually identical. Look at this gray background, same tonality, same gray balance. And this is real, this is not faked. But look at the color of the golf ball. It's not the same. Does that matter? If you're selling golf balls, probably yes. But look at each image individually. It's acceptable, probably, unless you, as Andy said, unless you have a proof. So what we've got is what I like to call pleasing color. And Andy made a really great definition between pleasing color and precise color. So thank you for that, Andy. Again, it's just a different image. These are, again, the same devices. With G7, you see how it works on the grays beautifully. And it even works on people, probably animals as well. But have a look at the bottom row here. Again, like the golf ball, on the bottom here, the flesh tones look pretty good. But there's a big difference between the saturation or the color of the blue and of the reds. But I would ask you once again, look at each individual one on its own. If you did not know what the source image looks like, you would probably find any one of these to be an acceptable reproduction. The one in the middle is richer because it is inkjet and it has more ink. So this illustrates a very important value of what I call shared neutral appearance. It gives you the best reproduction possible when there is no proof, when there is no color reference, no source profile, no color proof. And you also saw in that demonstration that by controlling grays, we go a long way towards controlling colors. Not always perfect, but always pleasing color. And at my age, I'll be 77 in September. At my age, I've learned to value pleasing color almost more than perfect color. There's times when you need it perfect, but most of the times you need it pleasing. Now, it also, therefore, reduces the work that must be done by the ICC profiles. And what that means is when you build a profile on top of the G7, you actually get a higher quality profile. So why is gray so special? The answer is because it is the only color that any human being can judge is right or wrong simply by looking at it, without any training. Because the grays, as long as they look to be approximately the same color as the paper or the substrate we're printing on, we say, yes, that's gray. Now, we are not digital spectrophotometers, but we judge gray by whether it looks close to the substrate. And to illustrate this, here are 3 images, and this is now where you have to wake up. I think some of you are already awake. This is a test now, and I do want some response. Which one of these do you think has the most neutral road in it? Or which is the best reproduction? Anyone voting for the one on the left? That's good. How about the one in the middle? How about the one on the right? I can't remember which one is right, but... All right, I'll give it to you. Normally I have my laptop here and it says, the one in the middle. Okay, now I've moved them around and I've made the difference a lot smaller. Is it the one on the left? One person? The one in the middle? Or the one on the right? I can't remember. I hate to tell you it, but I think it's the one on the left. The reason you like the one in the middle is if we like something that's neutral, we often like it with a little bit of blue in it. My mother, when she was washing white shirts, she would put a little bit of blue dye in the laundry. So anyway, what is G7 not? It is not color management, it's gray management. It does not guarantee perfect color, nothing does. But together, G7 and ICC are better. Shorter make-ready times, fewer plate remakes, Easier match to Grackle. This is what printers love about it. Less need for custom press profiles. They just have to use the standard one, as Andy said. And less need to reprofile, because if your system drifts, just recalibrate and it comes back to good color. Print buyers love it for more consistent reprints, fewer conversion charges, easier and cheaper file exchange between different print providers. And why creatives love it is because it's logical and it's understandable. And that's because printing is photography. This has been my mantra all my life. Photography and print have similar problems and priorities. Before adjusting color, both must control three basic visual characteristics: lightness or darkness or exposure as a photographer, contrast, and color balance or gray balance. Photography controls gray balance and tonality with RGB curves. How many people work in Photoshop here? Anyone work in Photoshop? Yeah. G7 controls it with CMYK curve, so they are both curve-based. And here is an example of a dye transfer print made from a tricolor camera in 1949. Notice that the photographer actually propped up a gray scale in the bottom left of the picture in order to control the printing and the development of his separations. When I received this picture, it looked like that on the left. I took it into Photoshop 6, this was in 1996, and carefully using elements in the image and the grayscale, only using curves, this is my grandfather. It restored the color amazingly well. And this is my son, so I have my grandfather and here's my son underwater. I found little points in here that were approximately white and gray and black. Nothing but curves restored this color. Now, this is nothing new. A lot of people do that and see it. This is the power of curves, and this is the power of G7. And it's why creative people understand it and like it so much. It improves the communication because all of the creative people understand it. So I know I'm running out of time. It says I've got 3 minutes left. Is anyone counting? You are. Okay. So G7 Plus, compared to G7, there are some differences. I'm going to zip through this really quickly because I want to get to the one at the end. It does produce better tonality than G7, and this illustrates it. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 6 different printing conditions. On the left is low-quality newsprint. Here on the right is commercial. That's G7. That's G7 Plus. You can barely see the difference, so I'll just enlarge up and get to the main point. Here you might see that the one on the right is slightly more pleasing than the one on the left. Not quite so dark, and that's one of the advantages of G7 Plus. It's not a big advantage, it's just it came with the process. But it was very important that we didn't change the fundamental contrast and gray balance of commercial printing. So here we have Grackle and G7 and G7 Plus. This is exactly the same as if it was Fogra 51, and they look identical. So there is no change. We are not rocking the boat. Shut up. 2 minutes I've got. So improved gray balance, I won't bother about explaining that in too much detail. G7 just appears more neutral, even on colored paper. It also solves a problem that I'm going to skip through that was with G7 that Andy discovered, and he wrote this nice little white paper, and I took it to Printing United. I said, see, we've got to make G7 Plus because Andy found a weakness. And thank you for that. This is Grackle or Fogra on an offset press. This is you take that same file to a high-density inkjet printer. Looks horrible. G7 makes the grays look beautiful, but it produces banding, and G7 Plus gets rid of the banding. That was one of the main reasons we got G7 Plus. You can see banding, and that disappears. It's my son when he was very moody, and it also improves the apples as well. So the big thing, the big advantage that I wanted to tell you about in G7 Plus is it makes it completely compatible with the UCD that Andy spoke about, the Universal Coded Data Set. G7 Plus is 100% compatible, and it is G7 Plus now under the name NNC, that will be in the ISO standard. So I describe it this way, and I stole this idea from Peter Jackson from Lord of the Rings. This is like one universal coded offset profile to rule them all. Was it translated that way when you watched Lord of the Rings in France? I hope so. It's a blend of Grackle 2013 and Foger 51, as Andy said, and it lets designers, agencies, brands, printers exchange in a common color space, eliminates the errors and frustration of the wrong profile or the uncertain profile, printing across borders without conversions, major savings, dollar savings for print buyers, brands, printers, and hobbits even. I don't know why I got 2 clicks. And as Andy said, the color is virtually identical to Grackle and Foger 51, which means it's compatible with your existing workflows. It's not rocking the boat. And I have an illustration here. Tell me if I have to stop. I'm almost finished.
Okay, finished.
Proceed?
No, it's okay.
Yeah, I can stop. Okay. He says I can stop.
You can finish, then stop.
Okay, I'll finish. I've got like 3 slides. So this is Grackle. That's UCD. I'll just go back. Can you see much difference? Pretty close, huh? And then here's Foger 51. I go back to the UCD. There are small changes here, but most people would say this is much smaller than the variation in an average press run. If I put them side by side, you can see it. All right, because they help to pay for my airfare, here's some advertisement for Printing United. If you want to learn more, you can download the white paper from there. And you can get some training in Europe and Belgium in October. And I want to say thank you, merci for your time, and sorry if I ran over.
Thank you, Don.